everyone. I'd like to welcome you all to the second session in our OHBA Renovators Council webinar series. This one with must be a fan favorite, as we have over 200 members that have subscribed to this webinar. So hopefully we have an engaging discussion here. My name is Brendan Charters. I am a founding partner at Eurodale Design Build. We are a Toronto-based firm specializing in additions, renovations, custom homes, and low-rise multiplex housing, now celebrating our 22nd year in business. I'm also a card-carrying conservative and a die-hard Leaf fan, so this week has been particularly difficult for me. Also currently a sitting member at the Ontario Renovators Council and also on the Education Subcommittee, and I have been tapped to help educate everyone on AI and the blistering speed of change that is being thrust upon us in our personal lives and our business lives. But before we get started, I'd like to call out special thanks to our presenting sponsor, our friends at Concord Fireplaces. At the end of today's session, one lucky participant will walk away with a $500 credit at Concord Fireplaces. So stay tuned until the very end. When we select a winner, you must be present to win, so no early logging off. So thank you once again to Concord Fireplaces for your support of this webinar series and to our renovator community. Without that support, all 200 plus of you would be paying to listen to me talk or not listening at all. So a quick reminder to use the Q&A function in today's webinar to ask questions for the second half of the fireside chat. Now let's get into our session, the AI Advantage, how technology is shaping the future of home building and renovations. Today, we're joined by Navin Kaminoulu, an AI expert with deep experience in the intersection of technology and construction. Navin was the co-founder and chief operating officer at Indus.ai, a company that pioneered the use of AI and machine learning to optimize how we build. After several rounds of venture capital funding, he must be rich, Indus.ai was acquired in 2021 by Procore Technologies. Also must make him even more rich. Today, Navin is a corporate development partner at Groundbreak Ventures, a key partner in the Center for Housing Innovation. So welcome, Navin, and thanks for being here with us today.
Awesome. Thank you, Brendan. I don't know how to top that introduction. And I, like you, share the same pain. I'm also a card-carrying conservative and a diehard Leafs fan. So my last couple of days haven't been very nice. So hopefully this is a good turnaround. But yes, thank you for the introduction. And yeah, just a little bit about myself to add on to what Brendan talked about. So yes, I'm a three-time entrepreneur. I built a company called Indus.ai and I co-founded that. And what we were doing, and this is actually before AI is what we see today, we were using computer vision to look at drawings and documents and figure out insightful things. And after I left Indus, I spent some time at Procore post-acquisition, leading a product line that was focused on project management, quality, and safety. So I know a lot about construction. And then after that, I recently joined Groundbreak Ventures, and we've actually partnered with a few different entities. So one being NGen, another one being FedDeb, another one being the DMZ, an organization called Civic Action, and we've pioneered something called the Center for Housing Innovation. And what our real thesis is, and if you all are well aware of this, is we have something in Canada called a existential housing crisis. And our idea is, how do we kind of help with that, alleviating that housing crisis, is a couple of different things. One, investing in the next generation of companies through either partnering, through helping them through an accelerator. And the next piece is really on training. So training being, how do we upskill, reskill, and new skill the people who are going to be helping us build the cities of tomorrow. So that's a plug for the Center for Housing Innovation, which I'm super excited to be a part of. And now I'll turn over to you, Brendan, and we can let's see what you got for me.
Yeah, I mean, listen, everyone's kind of tinkering with AI. I've never used a Zoom background. Hopefully this robots building a house is not too distracting for everyone. I thought it was on cue for today. But we all hear about AI probably half a dozen times a day, whether it's Bill Gates on Jimmy Fallon telling us due to AI, humans will no longer be needed, or image video generation tools, decoding dolphin language I heard about this week, or from our kids who know more about this than any of us. Help us demystify AI. Explain to us, as if we're a 5-year-old kid or a 90-year-old dinosaur, how this AI actually works.
Yeah, so that's a great question. So I would agree with you that 100% that we hear about AI at least a few times a day. And I think the best way to kind of think about it is, as entrepreneurs, as business folks, as everyday people, is just think of this as the new electricity. So if we think about software, software really was to take us from paper to using something on a computer or using something on a mobile phone. So that was the first evolution of taking us away from paper. The next piece I would say early AI, and that's what I was using when we were building Indus, which was we had these models that we had to build, we had to train them to kind of understand and infer things when they actually recognized a pattern. Now, what AI is it's a pre-trained monster that already has tons of data where you can feed it natural language. So you can actually ask it questions. So I'll go back to, as early as 5 years ago, if I was an electrical contractor and I wanted to generate an invoice, I'd have to use a software application such as a QuickBooks or something like that. I would have to put in certain things such as, you know, uh, someone on my team worked X amount of hours, and they did this specific piece of scope of work, and then I'd be able to generate that invoice and I would send it off. I'd also probably have to tell it what province I'm in, so I'd apply the right amount of sales tax. Now, with I'd say the pre-trained models that everybody hears about, such as either a ChatGPT, a Google Gemini, Anthropic has another one called Claude, you just have to tell it. So imagine now in today's world, I can just say, generate me an invoice for Brandon's scope of work where he installed X amount of panels in Newmarket for the week of May 1st, right? So that invoice now will just be pre-generated. I can ship that off to, the person who actually is going to pay the invoice, and it's done. No more me going into an application and typing in, Brendan, finding him from a drop down, finding the sales tax in Ontario, finding the type of work. I can just tell this program and it's going to generate that invoice. So I think the demystification of AI is now we have software, it's still software, that actually has been pre-trained and can learn just based on actual textual or verbal cues, and it can do the work for us. So that's probably what everybody is hearing about today in terms of AI. And I'll give you an interesting anecdotal a tidbit. Um, a friend of mine's son was, preparing for a test. And he actually, what he did is, instead of me going and looking through all my notes, I'm going to take all the notes, I'm going to feed it into an application, and I'm going to ask it to give me a 30-minute podcast that summarizes everything. So when I'm on my trip, when my parents are taking me to my baseball practice or hockey practice, I can just listen to that thing. So if you think about how powerful that is, both from us being entrepreneurs or business folks or our everyday life, this can really simplify and automate our everyday lives. Hopefully that helps.
Yeah, I mean, it sounds amazing. Traditionally speaking, and it sounds super easy, which is the user-friendly aspect of it is what's so attractive, I think, to most people, because most of us are we all have a smartphone. We sit in front of a computer from time to time, or a laptop, or what have you. So we all touch and feel technology at this point in our lives, but our industry, especially the construction industry, but especially the renovation side of the industry, are typically slow to adopt technology. When we started Eurodale 22 years ago, we didn't have smartphones. Then when we had smartphones, we didn't have email coming to those phones because it was just too expensive to have that application and that data flowing. now you couldn't live without having that on your in your pocket all the time. So what do you think are the big opportunities for renovators to be able to leverage AI in their businesses? Like you talk about the QuickBooks aspect of it. Like, is it focused predominantly and primarily on the office space, on simplifying the office type admin tasks? Or are there, like these guys behind me, some field applications that AI might help with?
Yeah, I think that look, there are endless opportunities out there, and I think that regardless if it's either renovation or if it's construction, the most difficult part of the, and I'm sure that I'm going to get some feedback on this. One of the most challenging parts of any project is the beginning of a project. You got to deal with customers, you got to deal with requirements, you got to deal with kind of figuring out the estimation, you got to figure out with budgets, project timelines. So it can be a little bit overwhelming. And then, especially if we think about home renovation, if we all want to think about customer first, probably what customers want to see is I want to see how is this thing going to look, right? What are the designs available to me? Because people, they want to, that's what they get excited about. They're not going to get excited about you telling them, okay, this thing is going to take 3 months and, we're going to do your custom cabinetry and we're going to get you these type of fixtures. That's not what they're going to get excited about. They're going to get excited about how is this thing going to look and feel when it's done. So I think from a home renovation perspective, if you can use applications or AI applications that can help you convey the vision that the customer wants to see, that's going to give you immense value. And I'm going to give a couple, and I can think of a couple of applications that would be helpful for the community to try if they haven't already. One is an application or a product called remodel.ai. And basically, what that is you can take a photo or an image, you can upload it, and it can give you the renderings on flooring options, different design styles, wall colors, you know, and that to my earlier comment, your customer wants to be like, hey, Brendan, show me the good stuff. How is this going to look at the end? Now you can simply do that and show them on your mobile phone. The next one I would say is there's another one called Reimagine Home. And going back to you kind of already know, okay, I've shown you how the walls are going to look. I've shown you the flooring. Now the second piece is let me show you the design options in terms of all the furniture that when it's in place, maybe we're going to do some changing to some walls. This is how it can look at the end. And prior to I'm going to say the proliferation of AI, this would have probably taken some time. Now you can do it almost in real time with the customer. So you can get the customer excited about the project instead of your early meeting with them being let's talk about the budget and the timelines and how long this is going to take and etc. You can now quickly just say, hey, let's kind of see how this thing is going to play out when it's all said and done. And that, as a home renovator, you can get people really excited about what the project will look like.
Yeah, and I mean, on social media as well, like you talk about the front end of the project.
Yeah.
One of the difficult things we always experience is the handoff at the end because we've, talking about technology and the stuff we've started to put into the homes to operate the home, sump pumps, grinder pits, HVAC systems, ERVs, all these types of things that are very technical or even a little bit technical, and homeowners just have no interest in knowing about them. Some of the people I follow on social media have said that customers have uploaded a photo of, like, they take the panel off their furnace and they take a photo of the furnace and upload it into ChatGPT, and it'll tell you what part has failed. It'll tell you if it notices some corrosion on another part that hasn't failed yet, and give you links to order for replacement of those parts. And so they're talking about integrating some of those camera systems inside, like, to be able to alleviate the homeowner aspect of it where they're intimidated to touch anything, but also maybe save us time from going out to the site and already having a bit of a prognosis on what the issue might be. It could, so the front end and the back end, I see a lot of opportunities there. I attend a lot of these forums, as many people in the association do. Oftentimes I feel like I didn't really gain anything useful. And you mentioned the remodel AI, the reimagined home, which is great, and I'm definitely going to take a look at it. Um, I always want to leave one of these with an applicable action. Like, what is there something easy that I can go and try today? Um, can you help us with a couple simple opportunities that the community here today can start with um, at the end of this session that they can go and try that, just to dip their toe in the water, so to speak?
Yeah, I go back to your earlier comment there is, we can sometimes we want to walk before we can run. So you can talk about the rendering and we can talk about working with the customer and giving them how the vision will actually look. But sometimes let's look at some of the low-hanging fruit. And I think that's what really you're asking. I would say, one, you're probably already doing this is the autocomplete on your email. So, why are you typing everything when it's already predicting what the sentence and what the paragraph should be? So I would say enable that. The other one, if we think about the work that you all are doing, it's all project based. Project based means that you're probably doing a lot of time figuring out your calendar. So, you've got a customer who calls you and says, Brendan, when can you come out here and do, my estimation or what's happening with my follow-up meeting? So another one you can think of is there's a product out there and there's a few out there, but I'll mention one that's quite popular called Motion, which basically acts as your calendaring assistant. So it'll go in there and schedule your meetings and figure out where things are happening. So you no longer have to kind of figure out, okay, you know what, I'm going to this client site at this time, so therefore I can't meet with this other customer. It does that for you. And the last one I'll throw out there is really on the summary of meetings or interactions. And there's tons of products out there that do that. There's one called, I believe it's called Read.ai. There's another one called Fireflies that you can just summarize the meeting. So instead of you coming back and going through your day of I've met all these customers and these are all the things that I've done and the conversations that I've had, keep it simple. Use one of these products that summarizes all those meetings. And that way you can save yourself time. One, you've now saved your time, self time on calendaring. And two, you've now saved yourself time on kind of figuring out what your day looked like at the end. So I'd say those are the two low hanging fruit. And obviously the one I mentioned earlier on is quick and easy. And, just enable that autocomplete on either your Gmail or Outlook or whatever you're using, because it'll do the completion of your sentences and your paragraphs, and you can focus on more fun and interesting things.
Just to start you getting used to the Jetson way of life. So, and that's great. And those simple applications, as you mentioned, like it's nice that you're sharing these ones that you have a comfort with and that you have a
Yeah.
knowledge about. Um, I find it's everything's moving so quickly in this space. And every few days or every few weeks, we get another release of an AI that is like game changing, like completely throws the entire industry on its ears. And then 3 weeks later, there's another one that does the same, but from a different company. And so we follow and social media is great for this. Really, through Instagram, we follow his tag is at RPN. It's RP Nixon, and he's really up in the AI space. And so every once in a while, we catch his feed, and it tells you, you know. Video editing tools and all this type of stuff that we're using from a marketing perspective. But there's like where should social media is one thing, so only so much hits the mainstream media, but where would you recommend that we as renovation professionals look to find out what changes are coming? Like the products you say today are maybe useful today, but are there better products tomorrow? And how do we learn about those? And how do we stay abreast to that new electricity, as you called it?
Yeah, good question. One thing I'll say is I would liken, and this this is just my opinion. I would liken the introduction, or like now the mass proliferation of AI, to the mobile phone. I know I talked about electricity, but I think let's talk about a more recent example. If you think about the mobile phone, how many apps were coming out every week, right? And then now you look on your phone, you probably only have four or five. So to your comment there, Brendan, there's something coming out every day, and there's something on social media talking about either, okay, ChatGPT can do this, Gemini can do this, there's this new app that can do this. You're seeing all these things on social media, you're seeing everything on the stock market, etc. So I think that as an introductory exercise, I would encourage people to do a few things. One, I think that you should all, go and do the Google Essentials AI course. It's free. It'll get you, a lot of the things that I chatted about. It'll just, it'll make you more comfortable. The other one I would say is, we all are busy people. We're driving from location to location, and this is probably not something we want to spend our time and energy on. Is listen to some podcasts, and one that I would recommend is one by the gentleman by the name of Dan Fagella. And all this just kind of to reiterate. I know there's some questions in there. We'll circulate something at the end of the webinar, which will provide a summary of some of the things that we've spoken about, so you all don't have to take notes on that. The last thing I would say, and I would encourage everybody to go read. Sam Altman has a one-page blog called The Age of Intelligence. It's basically just summarizing a lot of the things that I've spoken about, but just to kind of get your head thinking on how is this not only going to change the work that I do, how is this going to impact my daily lives? So those three things I would say is the Google Essentials, to the podcast. You can find tons of them, but that's the one that I recommend. And last but not least, go and read that blog.
So and that's great. And one of the things that, like, just to get comfortable with it, one of the things my business partner Jim Cunningham said, well, he said two things. One, don't tell everyone our secrets of how we're using AI. This is
Yeah.
our competitive advantage here. But the other one he said was he just started chatting with ChatGPT because he's always driving by sites.
Mm.
And so if he had a question, instead of him grabbing his phone and texting, which obviously is not safe to do in especially any street, let alone the city of Toronto, he just started asking questions to ChatGPT and actually having a conversation and getting used to the information flow in that regard, and that really increased his comfort level with it. So it's kind of, you just got to get used to the robots sitting beside you and using them. So we talk about the admin side of things and the impacts that's going to have, the consumer facing connections. You talk about interior design type elements. I start thinking of industries that are in trouble potentially with the advent of these programs. Home stagers, photographers, interior designers, architectural designers. What do you think the long-term impact is on renovations in the renovation industry and renovators as the workforce? Are we doomed to be replaced like so many on AI's target board?
Yeah. So
Yes.
no, not at all. I think I'll talk about renovators, and I'll also talk about broadly as entrepreneurs. We just need to be prepared always for changes in any type of industry that you're in, right? So um, if we think about the type of work that you're doing as home renovators, a lot of it has to do with kind of customer interaction, right? So I chatted earlier on about now you're going to have a lot of the back office is going to be able to be automated. A lot of the early work is going to be able to be automated, such as designs, staging, etc. The stuff that you probably will be more challenging to automate, and where you should really spend more energy on is being more customer centric and being more customer first. So how can you differentiate yourself? Because to your point, you're trying to keep all of your IP for your company, but the reality is now a lot of this stuff will just become table stakes, right? So whatever
Right.
you're using, Brendan, somebody else is going to be using the same thing.
Sure.
So how do you differentiate yourself? And you can differentiate yourself in a few ways, right? So think about it from the lens of perhaps it's on the quality of work you do. So, you know what? I'm always going to use Brendan because I can trust his company's craftsmanship, right? I know that competitor ABC out there, they're providing me the same designs. Maybe they're 2%, 3% price difference here and there at the end of the day, but I can trust Brendan's work because I can trust the craftsmanship. The next piece is, you know what? When I have an issue, I can actually call him and speak to him. So, how do you differentiate yourself in terms of being more customer centric? And how do you differentiate yourself in the type of craftsmanship you offer? So, those are some of the things that I would encourage people to think about is this technology is going to make a lot of this stuff commoditized. So, how can your business, sustain where your competitors all have the same things that you have? So you got to think about those two things, I would say.
Yeah, and we've all seen videos of from Boston Dynamics, the drywall hanging robots, uh, moving pallets of heavy materials. I just saw recently a tile laying robot that obviously would be great in large industrial type applications. But it almost seems like in those large renovation type aspects, maybe it's possible. But when you're talking about a house,
Mm.
downtown Barhaven or Riverdale, and you've got no space to move about, you're not going to be bringing this big tile laying robot in there. And we've seen ones that do roof shingles. You've got 3D printed concrete, all that type of stuff. Uh, there's an application for that, but on the true renovation side of an existing home, there's so many intricacies that can go into those spaces, and they are quite confined.
Mhm.
Um, it almost seems as though there's going to be a bit of a return to craft and
100%.
understanding of those different home building technologies through the decades, because a home built in 1880 was different construction methods than in 1920 and in 1950 and in 1980, et cetera, et cetera. And how to marry an addition into an existing house and all that it's kind of tough for a robot to do. At least I like to think it is. And so I think, like you say, if it's your focus is on the customer centric side and on the craft, on the quality of the craft that you deliver, could make sure that this industry remains in need for the foreseeable future. Now, and talking more about the conceptualizing side of things, how do you think AI is revolutionizing the way homeowners visualize potential renovations through modeling and virtual reality type stuff?
Yeah, so I would say a few things. One, these applications that we chatted about earlier, there's so many out there. It gives you the ability to provide, you're looking at something on a flat surface like this, right? You're looking at a 2D version, right? Yeah, it looks 3D, but it's essentially it's 2D, right? So if you marry that with 3D and if you marry that with VR, it gives homeowners a real immersive experience. Now, not only are you able to see the thing, if you're using things like VR headsets or whatnot, you can actually put yourself in those actual environments. So, Brendan has now shown me how the flooring is going to look, the colors of the walls, but now if I can marry that to VR, I can actually get the look and feel, and I can also get the spatial awareness. So, you've got this couch layout that you want to put in, right? And now it looks cool on the AI app that kind of has rendered it. But now if I put that in with the VR, I can see the spatial part, which are like, you know what? This couch is actually a little bit too big. It's going to feel a little bit too crowded when I have guests over, right? The last piece I would say with that, and we can talk about this forever, but is it gives customers more certainty in the decision making process, right? So I've now shown you how things can look. I've given you ideas on how we can do the layout. I've also now physically, given you the ability to be in that space. So now you can be like before, going back to yesterday's world, Brendan, you'd get somebody to do the renderings. You'd come with the book showing them the different types of paint, or you'd direct them to a website. You can do all of that in a condensed period of time, and the customer can quickly make decisions and also have confidence like, oh, wait a minute, like I know it's going to look like this, right? So, yeah, going back to transitioning from having a 2D to a 3D view, having the confidence to make decisions, and last but not least, the spatial awareness, right? So I know that how everything is going to look and feel physically if I'm in that
Yeah, and that's a great point. We have so many clients that we've designed things in 2D line drawings for, and you can do elevations and that. I mean, you can even do some photorealistic renderings, but until you get into this physically into the space, there's many clients that really can't visualize it and can't understand how it feels as they move about the space, and that crowding aspect, or if it feels, overly voluminous and just too big and vast. And so to be able to put them virtually in the space. I know I've seen some places where they print floor plans out on the ground, or they have like big screens that you kind of walk through the space, or the VR goggles. Definitely would help. When we first started in the industry, we used to call them magazine tears. So people would grab like House and Home, Reno and Decor magazine, this and that, and they'd pull stuff out that they liked the picture of. Then came along House, and they have a plethora of information and images on the internet that you can come about. But now I've heard of property developers, even on the commercial industrial side, where they buy a strip plaza, and they describe how they want it to look versus how it does look, and that shortens that time in the meeting with the architect, because the architect doesn't have to do 4 or 5 iterations to find the style that they're looking for. They can start right away with, okay, I know kind of what you're looking for. It's not perfect what this AI generated image is, but it shortens that time, and can help the customers make decisions faster. So that's really interesting. Um, Now, AI will help the homeowners make those tailored design options, but what specifically would we task those clients with? Like how would we actually use AI to analyze those preferences and suggest design options? Like, so the customer comes to us with ideas, um, you know, we then have like all those magazine tears laid out. We kind of look at it, we're like, okay, they like this red door, they like this white kitchen cabinet, et cetera, et cetera. Can we use AI to then streamline our job thereafter? To deliver the next step.
Yeah, I think there's a few things that you can do. The first I would say is, like going back to my earlier comment on this idea of being able to just ask questions. So taking advantage of that in the sense that ask your customers questions, like send them a questionnaire, right? Such as, what type of style are you looking for? Is it traditional style, modern style, very retro, etc., right? You can also ask questions like, what's the functional purpose of this renovation, such as I'm building a home office, I'm building a kids play area, right? So I would say that, use AI to help with the early questions that you want to ask customers. The next piece is ask your customers to give you images, right? So, how do you want this thing to look? So go on the internet and upload some images on some designs that they like. That way, I can use the AI. Now you've kind of filled out my questionnaire. Two, you've given me some things how you want this to look. I've kind of got two pieces of the puzzle, right? Um, the next one this is probably the pie in the sky is, can you go to your customer and just ask them, what do you want this to be? So imagine a world where you can ask your client Tom or Susie and say, tell me what you want. and they're going to be like, you know what, Brendan, I want you to redo my X square foot house. I want you to make all the bathrooms very modern. I want you to go and refer to, a specific Pinterest link or a specific house link on how I would like it to look. You feed it all of that, and then it'll spit out some design ideas. So I'd say early on in the design process, use AI as your secret weapon to get customer input, to get customer requirements. And that way it's, the guessing and the conversations, a lot of the heavy lifting is done early on.
So, you have Susie gives you that information,
Yeah.
and you're contractor A, and then I'm contractor B, and Susie has that natural language discussion, and we
Yeah.
input it, and it's received by AI and comes out with it. And then you have contractor C, and Susie has because she's been told to interview 3 contractors, she does so. She has this same discussion with contractor C, who's also using AI. Um, are we as lazy business owners now going to develop 3 identical solutions for Susie to pick from? Like what, and is it going to be just style ripped from projects that are on the internet already? Like, is everything going to start looking the same and without, aside from it being traditional, transitional, or more contemporary? Like, are we going to be spitting out the same um, monochromatic housing typology for these clients? Like, are we losing that individual creativity and self-expression by using AI in this regard?
100%. I would say that there is that could be a potential challenge in the sense that you're going to develop some biases. You're going to a lot of stuff will start looking the same, right? So how can you, as a consumer, kind of help differentiate that? And some of that will come down to maybe you can also talk about, um, if we go back to interior design, maybe you can talk about the things that make you happy. For example, you can say, when I walk into my living room, I like seeing pictures of my family and I like seeing pictures of my family from travel, right? So the individualization, I think, is going to come down to a lot of the personal elements that you can add to, so that way some of the biases that the AI is going to spit out. So you go back to the example that we talked about in the 3 different uh, renovators. If you give them all the same information, maybe they might spit out the same thing, but you got to also add that personal touch, because the personal touch, I believe, that'll help differentiate how some of those designs could look. But yes, there is probably a challenge that we may run into, the loss of a human touch, homogenization between designs. We may run into that, but how can you, as a customer, kind of help differentiate? So, you got to give it real personalization elements.
As 50 Cent said, go ahead and switch the style up and watch the money pile up. You gotta keep some of that individual creativity in there if you want to have a successful business, for sure. So are there some ethical considerations, some privacy considerations? Are there things that, either as a consumer or as a renovator, we should be aware of and cognizant of with these types of programs?
100%. The reality is these are applications, and you're just feeding it all of, your data, right? Um, so I would say the as an entrepreneur, as a business owner, how much are you willing to share, right? And it goes back to my earlier point, right? If your competitors are all going to start using these tools, you may have to live in a world where you're willing to share more, right? And these companies out there, they have all that data, right? So you have to accept that as a reality, right? Um, the other part is around like privacy that comes with that. What is the line that you're willing to, the red line not willing to cross, right? Perhaps you don't want to upload, or you don't want to give the AI your hourly rates. I don't know. You could have some certain non-starters. Maybe you don't want to give it you've got the best drywaller out there, so you don't want to use the drywaller's name as Brendan Charters. I'm going to put Jim Smith, right? So perhaps there are some red lines. You got to figure out what that is, because the reality is these companies, once you feed it this information, now they have it, and they're using that to learn and to train and to provide better outputs. So figure out what your limitation is, because they will have well, whatever you give it, they've got it.
Terminator 3.
Yeah.
Navin, thank you so much. This has been very insightful. Our audience hopefully should be able to walk away from today's session with a better understanding, better appreciation of AI. But I want to get into, and there are some questions here from the audience. The first from my Ottawa Senator buddy Steve Barkhouse, who I swore if the Sens won last night, I would refuse his entry into this. So I don't know if I should really ask it, but it may be because he's old, which he is very old. I'm concerned how accurate the designs or solutions are that AI provides. Probably fearful as a business owner, thinking, okay, you develop this drawing, is it going to be code compliant? Am I going to design something that is, like Frank Gehry? And how the heck do I build this thing? Is he just old, or is he right to be concerned, or is it a bit of both?
Yeah, I would say there's obvious I he should there should be a little level of concern, in the sense that these things are only as good as the information you provided. So if you are concerned about the code piece, provided that provide that input into whatever tool you're using, such as I am in Nepean, and this is, here's the website for the municipality, right? That has all
Like the
the
building code, yeah.
building code, right? So it's only as good as the information you provided. The other thing I would say is I use the 80-20 rule, right? Assume that these things are 80% accurate, and the other 20% you're going to have to try and either figure out if it's there, or figure out how you can get that other missing 20%.
Yeah, I mean, I always joke with people that what we do is not rocket science or brain surgery. And now you read about them doing surgeries with these AI-driven robots, but there still is a surgeon that is overseeing and providing the information that's required to do that surgery. So we have another question here from Natalia. She said, Navin, good insights. She's just curious about if we're just replicating or replacing interior designers. So are we suggesting that GCs now take over that role and do away with the interior designers and try to just bring that in under their umbrella without having to pay for it? Or is it better, as I talked with the brain surgeon aspect, where you still involve that interior design professional to work with these tools and develop what ultimately gets built?
Yeah, I would say to the later part of your comment there is that you need to, like, we all need to evolve. So the partners you're working with, you're going to work with the ones that who have evolved, right? So if you're still working with the interior designer from 1975, who comes with you with a booklet of drawings, and they've taken all this time, and they've come and taken physical photos, and they're taking weeks on end, those are probably not the people you're going to be working with in the future. So you're going to want to work with the people who have evolved with the technology and with the product.
Right. So Fatima had a question about the applications for renderings, and we kind of talked about it. Is it going to continue to produce the same rendering over and over? But I think it comes down to the prompts that you're giving it and how intricate you get, and should it even generate, like, and anytime we've done something like this, it never generates exactly the same thing, but you can always amend it with further prompts, right? And so that the prompting of this software is what's so critical to the success of the outcome. Sarah asked, is there an AI app that can do takeoffs from the architect drawings? And I wonder if it's like material takeoffs or maybe estimating. And I know the building departments are developing and just about to use AI for code reviews, which I'm super excited about, because if I don't have to call an examiner to ask where my permit is, that would be a real thrill. But are there any apps you know that do takeoffs, either material or estimation?
I'm laughing, and I'm going to give you my Boy Scout swear that this isn't a loaded question. But the product that we developed, one of the applications that we were using it for was automated quantity takeoff. So I'm going to give a very quick.
Is Sarah Wu your wife? Is that your spouse asking this question?
So Sarah, I will not, I'll give you, there's tons of estimating automated takeoff applications out there. I'm not going to give any shameless plugs, but you can go and Google. There's at least three I can think of that are quite good. They'll probably come up if you Google automated quantity takeoff. But
That's
they
great.
are
Yeah.
out there, and they're actually quite good. Um, I believe it cuts down the takeoff process to almost 80% of the time
That's
is
for material orders?
quantity takeoffs. Yeah.
Great, yeah. Okay, and Anna asked about the info on the podcast and the Google Intelligence sites. I think this is going to come out after we have an AI companion note taking here, and so we'll be able to give you that information in a separate email that comes after. And then the same type of question, the recommendation for lumber takeoffs from Marie Jose. And so, there are a few that you mentioned, one of which you had a connection to, and you were so gracious not to shamelessly plug. But it's they're out there, and a quick Google search will help bring that to the fore. So, listen, Navin, really appreciate your insight. It's been super helpful. I'm sure they can walk away today, all our listeners, with a better understanding and appreciation for AI. Um, it really kind of wraps up most of our time here. I know we've got a few minutes left, and everybody is sitting on their hands, wondering about what's coming up next, either through AI or at OHBA. So. Really, today's session was just the beginning of how AI is transforming our industry. It has been the topic of conversation at OHBA and through many of my competition of late. And the nice thing is, if you can't get enough of Navin, he'll also be joining us Wednesday, May 21st, for our next webinar in the series, Estimating with Intelligence, AI tools you can use today. And that is awesome because there was a couple of questions exactly on that. So this session is going to give a beginner-friendly overview and feature a live demo of an AI tool already making a difference in the field. Discover how AI is reshaping the way residential construction professionals approach project estimates. Registration now open, ohba.ca/events 2025. I'm also excited to announce our next ORC, Ontario Renovator Council initiative, the OHBA Renovators Roundtable, Building Your HR and Leadership Skills, taking place on June 3rd. This 90-minute virtual roundtable will dive into key HR topics like setting performance expectations, navigating leadership triggers, managing change, and more. Participants will have the opportunity to explore these topics in breakout room discussions before coming back as a group for Q&A with our experts. This webinar is open to OHBA members only and is limited to 60 participants. Registration for this closes May 16th. That's Friday. So secure your spot today at ohba.ca/events 2025. Now's the time to announce the winner of our Concord Fireplaces giveaway. So we'll bring up our winner wheel and see if we can take a spin. I think Emma is bringing up the winner wheel. This is AI generated winner wheel. So let's see, we give it a spin. You see a lot of names here. I've never seen so many names on a winner wheel before. And Manny Gamari, congratulations. You are the winner of the $500 Concord Fireplaces gift card. So congratulations to you, and thanks for participating here. Thanks once again to Navin, the Center for Housing Innovation, Concord Fireplaces, and to each of you for joining us. We look forward to joining next month's webinar, where we'll dig into more AI and how that's changing the marketplace. Again, Brendan Charters, thank you for your time and interest, and have a wonderful afternoon.
Thanks, everyone. Thanks, Brendan.
Thanks, Navin.